You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White, one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Dave, how you doing?
Well, I'll tell you, I had first time we tried to record this last week. I had a pretty good bit going for this salutation.
You did. I'm so sad we lost
and
it.
I was thinking, well, maybe I could just do it again, but that felt really disingenuous. So here we are.
Yeah, if I recall, it was about Lauren Boebert jerking her boyfriend off at the Beetlejuice show.
It did. That is my favorite story of it might be my favorite story of the year.
I know. Is there no upper limit to how weird shit can get? Like, it's just every time I turn around, I'm like, well, things just can't get any weirder than that. And then Lauren Boebert jerks her boyfriend off at a Beetlejuice
and it's
play.
Like, it's kind of like, really, Colorado? This is your girl? This is the one you want?
Yep.
All right.
And we will never be rid of her.
Oh God.
No. Yeah. So, good God. Yeah. So, listener, this is the second attempt we're making it at this episode because we tried to deliver this one on time, for Monday, and shit just conspired against us to make it not happen. So here we are, take two. We're gonna give it to you because we're just that dedicated. I've been away. I woke up really, really early before the sun was even up. I got on an airplane to get all the way back up here, and here we are. And I've got a bottle of cheer wine to get me through.
Is that like toilet wine? What is that?
It's a North Carolina beverage that you can only get there. It's delightful. I have a ritual whenever I get off the plane. It's the first thing I do is get me a bottle of cheer wine because it's delicious.
Why is it called cheer wine?
I don't know, because it's southern. Actually, I think it's derived from cherries, and so it just, I don't know, it just kind of,
because it really does make me think toilet wine.
Well, it's not toilet wine. It's really, really quite delicious.
It's a carbonated cherry beverage.
Yeah. It's like it's a soft drink. Okay. Yep. Hey, so we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. There's no one else I enjoyed chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us pretty much on all the socials, except for Twitter, because fuck that shit. Elon Musk can have it. And he can eat my dick. You can find us basically everywhere else. Bring Me the Axe, horror podcast. We got a good deal of action hanging out on Instagram. There's our main account. Dave's got an account also at That Queer Wolf.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I actually joined the internet for this specific purpose because prior to this, I was not a participant in what the kids refer to as the socials. I'm still not sure I like it. But so far, it's basically just a feed of dogs and sea otters and horror stuff. And it's like, if that's the internet, then okay, I'm in.
Yeah. You get to curate it. Mine is all horror movie stuff and cats. Yep.
And that, everybody, is life in your 40s.
It really is. Yeah. Look upon my works in despair. Yep. You can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. So get to it. It's fun, I assure you. Also, apparently you can do this on Spotify also, yes, if you listen to us on Spotify. So I just want to get that all out of the way right at the top of the show. So now's the time where we give you a little taste of what we're gonna show you. And I don't think you're ready for this. Let's give them a taste.
Michael's a normal boy in an abnormal position.
He had a little accident.
You had yourself some sort of extraordinary fright.
Michael, where's your hair? I'm bald.
The proper medical term is harum-scarum.
What a loony.
Now, he's got one hairy problem. And he's about to find a solution.
You can't just come into our house, can you?
Ghosts can go anywhere.
In the least likely place you'd think.
Here's old Charlie's recipe.
A jar of peanut butter.
Don't use too much of it or watch out.
But the peanut butter solution is just the beginning
It's growing so fast.
of an even bigger problem.
Mr. Jingles, it's moving.
Human hair grows only half an inch a month. No more.
Oh, that's a head of hair. Well done, son.
I don't think it's natural, Dad.
It's the peanut butter solution.
This is a classroom, not a barber shop. A toast to this new hair. Long may it grow.
But if it doesn't stop growing, what will happen to Michael? It's a hair-raising, heartwarming comedy adventure for your whole family. See the peanut butter solution.
It's amusing.
It is a comedy adventure.
Yep. Whimsical in the extreme is how I've been describing it. There are movies, even the worst movies, the weirdest movies tend to have a sort of internal logic about them. Not this one. No. And we're kind of actually, I see, sort of stretching the definition of like what constitutes a horror movie with this one. Because this one is firmly a family movie. It's just loaded with fucked up weirdness that's just so uncanny and strange that it could only terrorize an entire generation.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a movie that was written by like 7 different people.
Yeah.
At varying stages. Like someone was like, here, I wrote a treatment for a movie. And someone else took it and was like, yeah, I'm just going to add a couple details and then pass it off to someone else I've never met or talked to. Because it goes through these waves of story, like narrative arcs that kind of reach a peak and then disappear and become something totally different in the weirdest fucking way.
That is accurate as hell, because it definitely feels like several movies all kind of jammed together. And we'll get to it. There's a reason for that.
I think it has a horror. The reason that I think it appeals to people with an interest in horror is that it really does, in a weird way, speak to the fears of children.
Yeah.
And because I was thinking about this all week, about like what would I? Because I did see this as a kid. It was on HBO a lot, probably in the late '80s, and I don't remember what I thought of it when I saw it. But I keep thinking, like, what would I have thought about this as a kid? Because as an adult, and I think most adults look at this and they're like, what the fuck is this movie? It is so goddamn weird.
Yeah, there was a time, because there's a few movies that I have memories of that were definitely age appropriate for when we were watching them as children, but they were also scary, like legitimately, in a way that was like, it was deliberate, but still like kid appropriate. It's like it's a thing that they don't really do anymore. Like whenever a movie is made for the family crowd or for children, it's really, really like kiddie shit. Like,
or it has to appeal to both. It's like we made this fucking animated movie, but we're sticking a bunch of adult jokes in there for mom and dad, to which I say, fuck you. Just make movies for kids and make movies for adults. They don't have to appeal to both people. If a parent can't sit through a 2-hour movie, fuck that, a 70-minute movie without chuckling at some sex joke. Don't have kids.
Yeah, so here's let's do some facts here. This year was 1985, and some other movies that were released that year were Reanimator and Return of the Living Dead, a real 1-2
both
punch.
Children's films
through and through.
Hilarious romps for the family.
For all to enjoy. This is a fucking killer year, because we also got Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, which is a movie that I know that you enjoy this one a great deal. I have come around to it in recent years. I used to not really care for this one, and I kind of lumped it toward the bottom of my rankings, but I kind of appreciate what they were doing with that, sort of stuck with the unenviable task of having to make another sequel in a series that just ended with the final chapter. So,
so instead they were like, well, what if we just were absurd about it?
Yep.
Because isn't Miguel Nunez, he's in that one, right? Isn't he Demon?
Yeah. He
is awesome, and that is the one where I believe he dies in the outhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot to love.
Yeah, there is. Personally, my favorite is Reggie.
Oh, he's the kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. A couple more. The Stuff also came out this year. Mm-hmm. It's a movie that made me very desperately wish that I knew what the stuff tasted like.
I believe that is Larry Cohen's satirical take on big tobacco.
I believe so, or just consumerism in general.
Very smart film.
Yep. Yep. And then lastly, Transylvania 65000.
Not a smart film.
Not a smart film, but I love it. I think it's very funny. I watched it not that long ago, and it still makes me laugh a lot.
Featuring notable racist Michael.
Yep. Doing some very fucking funny prop comedy.
Yeah, I'll give him
yep. But yeah, so cast and crew. This is directed by a man named Michael Rubbo, not Rubbo. He's an Australian director who'd been working in mostly shorts before this production. And then he went on to direct several more of the Tales for All series, which we're going to kind of address in a moment. But of all the movies in that long running series, he's directed the most, and for the most part of them, they make up the bulk of his entire career. Like,
he also made the Tommy Tricker movies.
Yeah.
Which I think I have actually seen one of.
They do sound very familiar. Like, and I'm sure that we probably saw them on like Nickelodeon or something like that.
I think they were an HBO thing, because I feel like HBO probably bought the license to all, because in the trailer it says it's a New World movie, but New World must have distributed it in the US, because I don't think it was in Canada.
No, this was another one of those movies that like they didn't really have an eye on box office. It was mostly like, we're going to sell the rights to this movie in as many venues as we possibly can, and that's where they made the money. So like New World just distributed it. I'm sure it was distributed by somebody else in Canada. I know that it was also sold overseas, so it was probably one of those things where.
Because on the Severin Blu-ray, there's an interview with Rock Demers.
Yep.
Which I had a hard time believing that was that man's actual name, but it is.
Yep.
And he said that he didn't even know that this movie had an audience in the U.S. until he came here for a screening, I think in California, in like 2015 or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, I knew that it was shown on HBO a little bit back in the 80s and maybe early 90s. He was like, but I didn't think anybody outside of Canada had really seen this, and it has a huge fucking audience here. Yeah. He was like genuinely surprised by that.
Yeah.
Which I think is a testament to how goddamn weird this movie is. People are like, oh shit, I remember that. I'll go see that in the theater.
Yeah,
the night I suggested this, I checked, I was like looking at the listings at Somerville Theater, and they were doing like a midnight screening of it that night.
That's right. That was the timing of that was really strange. How about some cast?
Bunch of people you've never heard of.
Well,
a few.
A couple. Michael Hogan, who is the journeyman actor. He does it all, features, TV voice. Probably best known as Saul Ty, the sort of grouchy XO, and Cylon in Sci-Fi's awesome Battlestar Galactica revival from a little ways back, which that's a series that I love the hell out of. It's so fucking good front to back. Some people may disagree with me on the ending. I love the ending. Fuck y'all.
I've never seen a single episode.
You should. It's good. It'll surprise you.
Wasn't one of them a part of Nexium?
Oh, I don't know.
I think one of them was.
That would. I would be so disappointed, but yeah,
because I'm going to take a stand. I'm a firm stand right now. We do not support cults of any kind.
No,
it's not sex cults, not any kind of cult. Okay?
No, we support cult films. Oh yeah, but also he's everywhere in voice acting. I think the night that we kind of bailed on trying to do this the first time, I went and put on the movie Clear Cut. That's
a Graham Greene movie.
Yeah, just
on a true story.
I
think it's a true story.
I don't know much about it, but yeah, I put it on a lark just because I've been meaning to watch it for a while. Who should show up? Michael Hogan, and he is as Canadian in that one as he is in this movie. God,
I love Canada.
It's so fucking great.
You hear me, Canada? I'm talking at you.
That's right. We like you. Mm-hmm. So also, this movie stars Matthew McKay, who plays our lead Michael. This was his first starring role, and he seems to be still fairly active in Canadian television productions. Following this, he played young Henry Ford in a biopic that probably leaves out all the Nazi and union busting shit. And then lastly, a kid named Siluk Seisanase. I think I said that right.
Again, I think it's Seisanasi.
Seisanase.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. He's Michael's best friend Connie in this movie. This was his first role, period. And after this, he'd go on to play Yick on Degrassi Junior High, and then basically all of the sort of Degrassi stuff that kind of flowers out from there.
I love Degrassi Junior High.
I've seen a few episodes of it, but like nothing ever kind of chronological or in order. I think I told you this last time that we tried to do this, that I have one really strong memory of this, and that was when I was in middle school, and they would occasionally kind of pull out the old VCR TV thing, and they were doing, this is all pre-Dare, and they were doing a program of like drug awareness education type stuff, and to sort of dictate the dangers of drugs, they played an episode where they're all the Degrassi kids are going to some concert, and a couple of them, one of them being Shane, takes LSD, and then like I think the implication is he had some kind of bad trip and vanishes. And they never, ever aired the second episode for us. So for the longest time, I was like, what the fuck happened to Shane? It still bothers me. I suppose I could look it up and find out what happened to him. I mean,
it's some real hard-hitting shit on that show. It's like one after-school special after another.
That's the thing, is every episode that I have seen seems to be teens in trouble.
But I'll tell you, it comes out of something kind of interesting. It was like a kids acting workshop or something like that in Canada. I can't remember wherever they filmed the thing. And it's like this group of core group of kids. They're not really actors. They're just kids who are participating in this kind of acting. It's like a not an after school program, but it's kind of like a program.
Yeah.
And it's just that, like, they just took them and put them in this show. So they're not really actors. They're just actual kids. I mean, I guess
those kids are actual kids. They would act the shit out of that stuff. So,
but like, yeah, they were just like, why don't we do a TV show? So then they do a TV show. And it's like, it's kind of cool. But I also just love Canada, and I love Canadian television. So.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why I own the Blu-ray. Actually, there isn't a Blu-ray. I actually own it on regular DVD.
Oh, no shit. Yeah. So nowadays, Siluk is very active in film production, and he's a first AD, so that's assistant director. And he's done gigs on movies that you have definitely seen. Like he works on very high profile stuff.
So you should talk about the music too.
Who
provides the music and why it is notable?
We're gonna get there because I've got notes before we even address
the Celine Dion of it all.
That's right.
Which is actually the name of my biography.
The Celine Dion of it all, the Dave White story. This is known as Operation Bear de Peanuts in Quebec. And it is part 2 of the Tales for All series. I mentioned Tales for All earlier. This is the product of a Canadian producer that Dave mentioned named Roch Demer. And the project was conceived as a series of family films that would also be adapted into books. So where he remembers seeing this movie, when he mentioned it, I had no memory of this movie as a movie, but I did remember it being a book in my school library. So,
and I think I told you the origin story because, again, I was watching that interview with Roch Demer.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice interview.
Yeah, he seems like a really great guy. He's this dude who was sort of like really, really into film, but at the time, I think it was like the 50s, maybe late 50s, early 60s. And he decides to like travel around the world, and he gets really into like Croatian. I think it's either Czech or Croatian cinema. I think it's Czech.
Czech.
And like Russian cinema. And he just like becomes really inspired by world cinema. I think you can kind of see that influence of like world cinema in this movie. But he really wants to like make movies that kids can watch. And so he like starts programming at theaters around Montreal, I think. And eventually he reads an article in the newspaper about like rising, like dramatic increase in teen suicide. And he is so moved. He's still moved in the interview. He read this thing in like the early 70s or something. and he still like kind of tears up a little bit. And I was just like, damn, man, you seem like a good person. So he decided he wants to make a movie, or he wanted to make stories for younger people that shows them that life is difficult, but it is worthwhile.
Yeah.
Now, that is a cheesy line, but it's such a noble pursuit that it's hard to make fun of someone for that.
Well, the thing is when it's delivered in earnest, if you were to make fun of it, you'd be a fucking asshole, because this is a person who's speaking from the heart and you believe him. And I definitely pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, we can argue over whether or not he succeeds in that, because I'm not so sure about that. But I think it is a genuine expression, and I think it is thoroughly respectable.
Yeah. So as of this recording, there are 25 Tales for All movies, with the latest in the series being in production as recently as this year. They unofficially began with a real shitty-looking children's movie called The Christmas Martian, which was produced by Demare in 1971. And if you get that Severin release of this, which I recommend, that's a really good disc. Like,
yeah, just give your money to Severin.
Yeah, it's a very nice looking transfer, and also the extras are all like pretty interesting and fascinating. But there's footage of this movie. There's footage of lots of the Tales for All movies on the extras, but this one in particularly, you see a lot of it, and it looks utterly terrifying in places, because like
you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that commercial. Remember that I'm from Mars and I like to eat candy bars commercial? It reminds me of that, where it's just like, this is the lowest budget looking janky shit I've ever seen, and I want to see the whole fucking now.
Yeah, the Christmas Martian himself has this like weird like net thing over his face that makes him look so uncanny and weird. But as we're gonna find out, uncanny and weird is kind of the brand for this. The series officially kicks off in 1984 with a movie called The Dog Who Stopped the War.
I'm anti-Dog Who Stopped the War. I thought that name sounded great, and then I learned what it was about, and I was like, fuck
That's
you.
the thing. If it's a children's movie and there's a dog involved, 99% chance that dog's going to die. And it does. The dog stops the war by dying when
in a collapsing snow fort.
A snow fort collapses on it. So this is a movie so I didn't remember seeing this movie. You did. I remember very clearly watching The Dog Who Stopped the War.
Like, what a delightful title. Yeah, except you know what it needs? An ellipsis, and then because he dies in a collapsing snow fort.
I know.
Is it a long title? Yes, but at least it tells the story.
Since we're talking about a dog and a kid's movie, I really do want to get it up front. Like, just tell me how the dog stops the war so I know whether or not I'm going to watch this movie. Because I still get upset when the dog fucking dies in a movie.
Oh, I won't watch anything that has that.
No.
I heavily rely on doesthedogdie.com. And I recommend it to everyone.
They're doing
pay for the app if you need to.
They're doing the Lord's work. Yep. So so as we said, this played very heavily on HBO back in the day, and for most people who remember this movie, that's basically where they saw it. According to Demare, they intended for the movie to be full of weird and unsettling imagery, but
success.
I kind of call bullshit on that. Like that seems a little bit like
that's a little retconny to me.
Yeah. Because none of the future Tales for All movies that that are available for seeing on that Severin disc, they do not look like this movie. It is dark. It's so fucking weird. He also insists that the underlying theme of this movie is death and loss, which we're going to sort of address the kind of weird.
Oh, I'm going to address it throughout.
The strange subplot about the mother, because it does not make any goddamn sense whatsoever. In the early stages of the movie, it's like heavily implied that she's dead, but
it is explicitly stated that she's not dead.
Yeah. But everybody kind of acts all morose.
It's the only explanation for why anything works in this movie, because otherwise, if you take that out, it's just like, then why is everyone such a goddamn lunatic? Yeah. Also, I think English is the first language for about 4 people in this movie.
Yeah.
But God bless them, they're doing their best, and they're making better English than I do French. So.
They're making it work. Yep. So if we're talking through this movie and you think to yourself, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Don't worry about it. Michael Rubo made this story up on the fly as a bedtime story for his kids before just taking all of the pieces and combining them into a script and turning it into a movie, which is why it has that sort of angular quality to it where one entire plot thread just resolves and then an entirely new one pops up in the same movie that you're watching. This will happen about 3 times. This also, going back to what Dave was mentioning earlier, this movie features the first English language songs by Celine Dion, who was 16 at the time of their recording. And the main theme is a song called Listen to the Magic Man, and it is insane. I have played it back several times. You can find the video on YouTube. I recommend it because it's really something.
You know what this movie is? This movie is like if someone took Mr. Balloon Hands and made a movie out of it.
not
my chair, not my problem. It's just like, here's a bunch of weird shit that someone is saying as they're rambling, and we're just going to make a fucking movie out of it. And then we're going to set it to Celine Dion's first English language track.
Yeah, right down to the lyrics of the song. Because basically the melody and the orchestration, it all kind of sounds like somebody was very clearly kind of aping the Never-Ending Story, but the lyrics are like a Tori Amos song.
Yeah.
It was originally recorded in French as Dans la main d'un magicien, which means in the hand.
Your French is exquisite.
I'm so good at it. I'm so fucking good at French. It means in the hand of the magician or in the magician's hand. And then the English version is kind of awkwardly retitled to match the melody and the meter. And the other Celine Dion song plays over the end credits. It's called Michael's Song. But yeah, she was like a teenager when she was doing this. And the places she will go.
She was being groomed by that old man she married. Hey, everybody, remember that? Remember when Celine Dion married a man who was like 40 years older than her?
Good God. Yeah, man. I don't care for it. But I'm glad she seems to have come out of it.
No, I think she's doing okay.
Yeah. So the movie opens on breakfast as Susie is Michael's sister. She's rattling around the kitchen in an oversized robe that we're going to find out belongs to her mother. She's putting all sorts of shit in a blender.
And they throw us right into like what sounds like a voiceover. The ADR use in this movie is very heavy.
It's inconsistent too, because they use it a lot when they need to dump a lot of shit on you in a hurry, and then it never comes back.
And it always feels to me, because this is my first note about the mom thing. It always feels to me like they're shoehorning shit in after the fact. So she's putting shit into a blender, and whatever she's making looks disgusting. She's going to be a terrible mother if this is what she thinks parenting is. But he says, someone says something about like their mom has gone away.
She has gone away, but he says it in such a way as to suggest Mom is not ever coming back.
Right, like this is how you explain to a child that someone is dead. They've gone away. But then she's got this giant frumpy bathrobe on.
Yep.
It is what Nina Garcia on Project Runway would call mumsy. It's a little madame. And so she says, why are you wearing that or something like that? And she says, I told you she said I could.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're really... And then she says she's not dead. She says it goes on. And it's because you're going out of your way to remind us or assure us all that the mother is absolute. Don't worry, kids. The mother is not dead.
Yeah, because they actually they let that hang for about 10 minutes because Michael goes to school and then her dad is like, "What the fuck are you doing? You need to go to school." And she's like, I don't know why he's so upset. It's not like she's dead or something like that. It's like, what was the fucking deal with the setup?
And so here's what, when we were watching it, Michael suggested to me, Michael, not the movie, suggested to me, what if it was like they changed the script? Because obviously they didn't go back and reshoot all this shit. That would have taken forever. Yeah. So what if they changed the script a little bit, but they didn't change the whole thing for consistency?
Yeah.
They just changed certain scenes in order to reinforce it. So when it comes up later, it really reads like she is dead because they never bothered for the sake of continuity to actually revise everything.
It's almost like the original intention was this was a single father dealing, and children dealing with grief kind of thing.
Because that's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah, because then at some point somebody was like, that's kind of a bummer. Here's some filler you can put in so that we can kind of salvage that.
Yeah, because it really feels like they got production notes back and we're like, no, you can't let the mother be dead. This is a children's movie.
Yeah.
But without the mother being dead, the rest of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so, because then she puts the thing down on the table and she's like, what? It's exactly what mom makes. And I thought, this is what your mom makes fruit and raw eggs in a blender? Like, if she's not dead, she's a terrible mother. She may as well be dead. You're safer that way.
Yeah. And this whole daughter as mother thing is going
creepy
to
as shit.
Make me extremely uncomfortable because it never veers into like inappropriate territory. It just dances perilously close to the edge.
Yeah.
So yeah, the two of them are basically fighting over not wanting to eat what she made for breakfast. I don't blame him. It looked fucking vile. And then she runs upstairs to tell her dad about it. And then this is when she does the thing where she's like, it's not like mom's dead. What we're going to find out is mom's in Australia because I think her father died and she has to like basically deal with his estate and sell the house. That's what
Okay, you could have let grandpa be dead. Someone needs to be dead in this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that still wouldn't explain why the dad is a fucking train wreck too. He looks disheveled.
Yep.
He wears the same clothes through the entire movie. He is a terrible parent as well. These kids are in danger. And not just the danger that ensues, but
yeah,
I think long-term
because when we're
experience.
introduced to dad, that's Michael Hogan, he is like disheveled and he's been up all night for some unspecified reason. And he seems to just sleep on a cot in the attic. So now we enter Connie. And
we also have you've neglected to mention that Michael is wearing what is very obviously a wig.
Yes,
and it is a positively British looking wig. Like it is an Austin Powers. Like, will the real Jan Brady please stand up? Like it is an obvious wig.
It looks like a Beatle wig. Yeah. Now Connie comes in, and this is Michael's best friend.
And this kid is great. He's awesome
great. He's
the entire movie.
Lets himself in, helps himself. Yeah, and what we learn through a little bit of exposition here that Michael kicks ass at soccer, and that the old spooky house nearby on the way to school burned down the night before. And that's where the winos live.
Yeah, air quotes for winos, and I love that even in my closed captions it refers to them as winos, but like not in dialogue. It's just like winos yelling.
Yeah,
it's just like I think it's great that. Even the closed caption calls them a wino.
Yep. So we get a little bit of a flashback where Michael sees the winos out on the street begging, and he gives one of them some money the day before.
But he goes up and throws the money down like he's feeding a wild animal. Like he just like very tentatively approaches and kind of like chucks it on the ground and runs away.
Yeah, don't get too close; he might bite you.
Yeah, he might give you wino disease.
Yep. And it's all set to some really sad wino music too.
And Connie is super into the destruction of this house.
He's
excited about the fire. He's excited about people choking to death. And it's kind of like, all right, you need to reel it in, Connie. You're a little weirdo.
So, on the way to school, now Michael checks to see if there's any mail from his mother who could just fucking call the house like a normal person. Because
it's a little forceful about like, don't worry, mom's going to write a letter, which she can do because she's not dead.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of wish that she would just pick up the phone because these three are not handling her absence well.
No, and she just went on vacation basically.
If
this woman cannot go away for a couple of days. All fall apart that quickly.
Like they descend into madness almost.
She left that morning, and it's like fucking Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. So and now on the way to school, for some reason, Connie is doing his best not to step on any ants. And I
doesn't mind a building full of winos burning to death, but don't step on the ants.
Hey, don't leave them ants alone. Yeah. So on the way by the old spooky house, we now learn that some people died there in the fire. So just put a little pin in that. Meanwhile, back at home, Susie is still there, like in the robe, fretting over housework. It's not really clear who's the older of the two. I think
it's her.
I think she's supposed to be the older.
But she finds like moldy plates of food in the father's like art studio, and it's like, dude, what the fuck? You have children. Why do you have moldy plates of food just laying around?
Yeah. And so now she's like she's fretting over housework when she should be at school, and we learn that basically Dad is an artist, and he has an appointment to try and sell some of his work to a guy named the Rabbit.
Which we'll get to that
what's
later.
the deal with the code names in this movie?
That is bizarre.
Because that's not the last one we're going to get. So at school, we're in art class, and we are introduced to the Signor.
Yeah, the Signor, who's a little too handsy for my liking.
I don't care for the Signor at all. We're not supposed to like him, but again,
he's a sack of shit.
Yeah, he's a real fucking asshole. He's also an artist, but he might be in the wrong line of business because he detests imagination, and he is obsessed with his dog, Jim.
My note says, the kids in this art cast are so goddamn French-Canadian. Except for the one kid. There is one kid who's like, but Senor, it's scary.
Yeah. Yep. So the class is currently tasked with drawing Jim, while the Signor, a flamboyant French guy who could be perfectly at home at like Pink Floyd's The Wall.
I mean, I will give it to the dude who plays this character. He really does it to the hilt.
He commits in a way that you're not expecting. He basically, his whole thing in this scene is he's going from kid to kid who's like basically sketching a dog.
They're all just trying to draw Jim, who's just sitting there on a chair, except for Michael, who's drawing the dog in like a Faustian hellscape.
With flames.
Yeah, what are you looking at?
Yeah. Yep. And the Signor, meanwhile, is like ferociously critiquing the children, like just at no imagination. Do not use imagination. Draw what you see. So yeah, we get to Michael's, and it's Jim, but he's like surrounded in hell. And so the Signor also grabs Connie's drawing and threatens to tear it up. But Connie counters the threat with his own threat. And he tells him he'll never come back to his class if he does, which is not a thing that I knew you could do when I was a kid.
No, he's fucking my man Connie, standing up.
Ballsy.
This goddamn tyrant.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what would have happened if one of my teachers was like, this is bullshit. And I would have been like, if you touch that fucking thing, I will never come back to this class. They're going to be like, I'll see you with your parents tonight.
And younger people might think, well, a teacher would never say that. To which I say, a teacher would absolutely fucking say that. Every teacher I ever had was a total piece of shit who did not have any right to be teaching children.
Oh yeah, my experience with teachers was similar. It's a much different world these days. Like the teachers that my children have, way different. Way more invested in their education, whereas ours seem to be burdened with our education.
And I imagine like being a teacher is probably extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And still, they were all terrible people. So you hear that, Northampton Elementary School? You can eat a bag of dicks. You all fucking sucked at your jobs.
Fuck you.
Yep. Anyway, I just got that off my chest. Carry on with this film.
Yeah,
it's a very triggering movie for me, from the outfits to the teachers.
Yep. So back at home, Michael's father tries to sell a number of paintings of birds to the Rabbit.
And he says, my last show was a sellout. And I thought, that can't possibly be true. This art is terrible. It's objectively bad painting.
Yeah.
And they're all like whimsical toucans fucking smoking a cigarette or something.
Yeah, I do like the one that, like, the big, like, you cannot have this one, the one of the family playing tennis, because the perspective is really fucking weird.
Yeah, it all feels like it's like pulled from a fucking Kids in the Hall sketch.
Yeah. So this is where we find out that Michael's mother is off doing the thing in Australia. And meanwhile,
because the Rabbit wants to buy the fucking tennis painting, and he gets like weirdly possessive. He's like, no, this is a gift. It's like, okay, if it's a gift, that's fine, but why are you being a fucking weirdo about it?
Yeah, it's a gift for Susie.
It's almost like your wife is dead or something.
I know. Yep. gotta protect this painting of the family.
And it's the last thing we have.
All together.
When we all played tennis.
Yeah, all of us conspicuously alive cannot sell this one. So now, on the way back from school, Michael and Connie are back at the spooky old house. They decide to climb up on the wreckage of it.
Connie's got an idea. Let's break into the burned out death house that is still a smoldering crime scene.
Yep. And so he eventually falls off, gives up on it, but Michael
what
keeps
are they
going.
climbing on? It's so the house is like a kind of like a bombed out Victorian wreck, but why does it have a rickety old coal chute outside?
That's the thing. It looks like a leftover set from a scene where they shot some shit that was set during the Blitz in London or something.
This is where the dog was supposed to stop the war.
Yeah. So yeah, Michael climbs up and he gets inside and he walks around, and then we cut back out to outside as Connie is like, "Hey, Michael, come back, come down." And then we hear Michael screaming from the inside, and it cuts to a fucking intense extreme close-up of him screaming with his hair standing on end, and then his body lifelessly slides down the coal chute out the window. Just
so
unconscious.
So the ghosts scare the shit out of him.
Yep.
And then they throw him out the window down the coal chute. It's like, dude, he gave you money. Yeah, he was a weirdo about it, but still.
Yeah.
This is how you repay him?
Well, we're going to find out. One of the winos is an okay dude. The lady wino fucking sucks.
Yeah, so she's got a real kind of wild personality.
I'm going to assume that it was her who scared the shit out of him and threw him out the window.
Yeah, it is definitely a problematic portrayal of mental illness and homelessness. Just FYI.
Yep. So back at home, Susie is still not at school.
She does appear to be doing the family's accounting.
She's managing the finances for some reason.
Yeah, she's sitting there with an adding machine and a pen and a paper. What's going on here? Yep. Why is she making gross breakfast and now doing the bookkeeping?
And she's but she's also fretting over it.
Well, things are harder now that mom is definitely not dead.
Yeah. And Michael is now brought into the house unconscious. Connie goes over what happens.
But listen, I got to tell you, this is the first moment in this movie because throughout the entire thing, everyone's real fucking casual about what is happening and what happens to Michael. He brings him home in a shopping cart. He is clearly in some kind of coma, and they're all like, "Dad, don't worry about it. Just put him on the couch. He'll be fine. Walk it off, buddy."
A little later on, also, there's going to be a weird disparity between how Michael's affliction is being handled sort of internally, how he deals with it, and how his father does, in a way that really bothered me because he's obviously has this outsized expression of rage and sadness, and when the hair starts growing, his dad's like, "All right, there, Michael, boy, attaboy." That's a way to grow that hair.
This is a sign of a problem. This is a health crisis, if nothing else.
Yep. So now, but as this is happening, Michael's brought into the house. Connie goes over what happens, and we get a little POV in the spooky house as he's.
And I'll tell you, this can't be right. He was in the house for all of 5 fucking seconds before he gets chucked out the window. But in the flashback, he's in there for 2 hours.
Yeah, we got 20 minutes of sneaking around the ruins kind of thing. It's crazy.
But then they show the house from a different perspective, and it looks like a totally different house.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the weird coal chute. The other one was a bombed out Victorian, and this is just some old house.
Yeah. The implication here is that Michael saw the burnt up bodies, or he saw ghosts of the burnt up bodies.
I think one or two of them is an unreliable narrator.
Yep.
I'm getting it.
Yep.
And they're really not very nice to Connie either. They're basically "Thanks, kid. Can you get the fuck out now?"
I know. Yeah. His dad is he's not rude. He's just mostly "What are you doing in my house again?"
And Connie's the coolest kid in this movie. He's the coolest kid in all of Montreal. Why are you telling him? Tell Susie to get out. She's a weirdo.
Certified Quebecois cool guy.
Yeah.
So later that night,
he's fucking dressed like Madonna from Who's That Girl? He is real cool.
Right. Yeah. So Susie finds the cat sleeping on Michael's head, and so she shoos it away. And then the next morning, Connie comes over for breakfast, and Michael comes in, and we learn that he lost all his hair overnight. And
now the amazing thing about this, though, is that they clearly just shaved this kid's head.
Oh, yeah.
Why didn't they put a bald cap on him? Why did they actually shave his head?
Yeah. I don't know. I have no answer for that.
And this scene is also, because this is in the trailer, and I think I've used it for something else online, but it's like, you can tell it's questionable directing, because the father and Susie look like genuinely surprised or shocked, but you can tell that Connie doesn't really know what to be doing, because he kind of starts laughing like he's uncomfortable. And then he's like, oh, wait, no, I'm supposed to be surprised. But they just fucking roll with it anyway. They're like, no time. We got to keep going.
Yep. They got what they want out of the foreground. Connie can, they can deal with that later.
I mean, he looks like he has leukemia. He even acts like he has leukemia. Like, he comes fucking stumbling down. Like he was just hit by a car and it knocked all of his hair out or something. Because he's like, his eyes are closed. He's kind of bumbling around the house. And it's like, why does it seem like he's been drugged?
Yeah, he's mumbling and shit. And naturally, they blame the cat for sleeping on his head. Like, this is a thing that'll happen.
Yeah, like, this is a fucking 14th century folk tale.
I know.
The cat stole his hair. That is not what happens. There is a medical crisis happening in this house, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah, a miasma fell across the land and caused Michael's hair to fall out. Yeah. So Michael takes the news poorly.
Yeah, you might think it's like his mother died or something, because the way...
My note says you would think his mom died or something.
Yeah, mine says this is a mom's dead breakdown, not an I lost my hair breakdown, because he fucking loses his shit so hard. Like, you do not see people cry like this unless they witness something terrible and they're doing it in the moment.
Yeah. His ongoing reaction to his hair loss is fucked up and very weird. Because at no point are we to think that his hair will not grow back. As a matter of fact, his dad consoles him by saying, here, like, touch, like, I just shaved. What happens if I don't shave for a couple of days? He's like, it's bumpy. And he's like, right, your hair's going to grow back. Michael spends, from what we can tell, the better part of like 2 weeks, like the scene, like that episode of The Simpsons where Bart breaks his leg and he can't go in the pool. It's like that. But also
it's St. Stephen's Day already.
Tis. So he's gonna hide in his bedroom and break down into hysterical sobbing tears like anytime.
But also, he clearly didn't lose his hair. This is kind of where I'm going. He didn't lose his hair. They shaved his head. It's like it didn't fall out. You cut it. You can still see it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like it's not as impactful. But what do they do? Someone finally decides to take him to a doctor. And what is that doctor's name? Dr. Einstein Epstein. Jesus fucking Christ. Couldn't you have picked a better, I don't know, less anti-Semitic name?
Right, because he's got that like Austrian accent that like everybody who's ever done like a character, like an impression of Albert Einstein does. And what we learn is he has the fright. Or harum scarum, which is what they say in the and
that
trailer.
Is definitely not a medical term. He says it is, but it is definitely not. I am not a doctor, in case you didn't know that. But he is definitely wrong about that. But how does Michael react? He loses his fucking mind again.
Goes insane. Yeah, like
and he's angry with the doctor like it's the fucking doctor's fault. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, yeah, the whole thing is junk science. They should go to a different doctor.
That doctor is crazy as fuck.
It's not his fault.
Yeah. So next, the Signor hijacks Connie at school and interrogates him about Michael's absence.
In his office in what appears to be a janitor's closet?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's where I'd put the Signor, too. Because, I mean, I honestly, I don't think he should be working with children. But if you had to let him in, I'd put him in the janitor's closet.
His interest in Michael is suspect. Yeah. Because apparently Michael's absent, and it's only been a couple of days. This is really weird to the Signor, who's like, I don't know why he's so interested in the whereabouts of one of his students.
Yeah, I have a note here that says the way the kids react to the Signor, it suggests that something funny is going on. And then it says, and by funny, I mean definitely illegal and traumatizing.
Yep. So now Michael is haunted by nightmares about being in the spooky old house. Like, he very clearly has PTSD about ghost winos.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Yep. And so back at school, we learn the senior has like a meeting with the school principal, and we learn that he gives children nightmares
Yeah, my favorite part about this, though, is when he goes into the office and the dog, Jim, jumps up on the couch and the senior goes, yeah, he loves velvet. And I was like, that's the greatest fucking line in the whole movie. Don't worry about him. He loves velvet. Like, yeah, I guess we all kind of do.
You must have ad-libbed that. That's such a fucking funny line.
And she's sitting down. She goes, and the woman, she's a weird character too.
Yeah.
She's it's like they pulled her from some sort of British, like upstairs, downstairs sitcom.
Yeah.
And plugged her into this movie because she's like this larger woman with like a kind of blonde, coiffed hair. And she says, Senor, I've had my doubts about you and I've done some checking. And I thought, bitch, shouldn't you have done that before you hired him?
Would think. Then again, like my experience with teachers in the 80s was also kind of like as an adult, I think back and I'm like, you probably would have failed a modern day like background check, just given how you handled other children. Like, because what we find out about the Senor is that he's a fraud. He's changed his name several times. He's changed his entire identity.
Yeah, you've been thrown out of 2 schools. You've faked famous paintings, and you've changed your name and appearance 4 times. Like
he's like Freddy Krueger.
That does not scream sociopath. Like you hired a con man, and you would clearly someone has told you all of this. Why didn't you ask that before you hired him?
I know.
Because it's not like he presents well.
No. Oh no. He's as maniacal and weird and as disheveled as Michael's dad.
Yeah. And meanwhile, back at fucking Michael's house, he is doing some Bobby Brady style drumming.
Yeah.
Susie just to get that rage out.
Yeah. Susie's playing the piano very well, and he is just pounding on some drums, like with a look of just pure anguish on his face.
And he says, because Connie tries to soothe him.
Yeah, Connie shows up and he's like, hey, they sacked the Senor, which is a very British way to say he got fired.
Yeah. Hey, man, that's a Commonwealth country right there.
Yeah. Yep. So again, Michael freaks out.
Yeah, and he says, I look disgusting.
He doesn't just say it. He screams it.
Jesus Christ, calm down.
Which, no, he doesn't. He looks like a kid who shaved his head.
Yeah, it's also like you're like a 12-year-old boy who shaved your head. Like,
kid.
People do that shit all the time.
That's the thing. And it's only been a couple of days. Here's the thing. You could touch your head and feel the growth already.
Yeah, like, and Susie quite rightly says, like, basically, like, come on, man. He was just trying to be fucking nice to you.
Yeah.
Which I was feeling the same thing.
Yeah.
But don't worry, they have a solution.
Yeah. Susie and Dad ambush Michael with a wig.
Yeah, and they literally, like, they are assaulting him with
this is not the last time they're going to fucking like hoodwink him. They're gonna grab him like a couple of more times in this movie. They've got,
and it is the same wig he had on at the beginning.
Yeah, but he doesn't want it.
The best part about the wig in general is that he looks like Susan Tyrrell after she cuts her hair in Butcher Baker. Like, it is this choppy fucking like early 90s riot girl look that is really fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe not on him, but
he's like, it's just a wig, it won't stay on. And so they go and they get some fucking glue and they glue it on, and he immediately becomes like ecstatic. He finally goes
for a time.
He finally goes back to school. Not for very long. He goes back to school and he kicks ass at soccer again. But now there are bullies at this.
Yeah, there's
match.
the mean kid who looks like a good 7 years older than the rest of them.
Yep, he's
got like a mustache and the fucking biggest Cro-Magnon brow I've ever seen, outside of Baby Gerald from The Simpsons. If you're counting, that's 2 Simpsons references so far.
Yep. So so Michael is so good at soccer that they decide that they've got to do something about him. And what that thing is they grab him by the hair.
Yep.
And they rip it off.
Yeah, in the weirdest, most unsettling scene in this entire movie, they snatch that wig and it comes off in this slow motion movement when it looks like it was stuck on with like chewing gum. And then the kid's fucking waving it around like he's just scalped him. It is really bizarre.
It's so fucked up. The glue stretches like fucking cheese in an old Pizza Hut commercial.
Yeah.
Like it's
but then even better is after that, they start taunting him with some song that is very specific to him in this situation. And I thought, when did they have time to write this song? Because this is a choreographed moment. They all seem to know the words to a song that they just made up 5 minutes ago.
And literally everybody turns on him.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Because he has a terrible wig on. Now, does that happen in real life? I don't know. I'm not Canadian, but I can't imagine that it does.
Yeah, and the way that they all sort of chase him is like the fucking like the killer scene in Prom Night. Like, I'm surprised he doesn't fall out a window and die.
It is just like, why are these children all of a sudden like bizarre maniacs?
Yep. Again, yeah, it's a tone problem that this movie has. He's got his shirt like pulled up over his head, and he's like running and like ducking to get away from this like murderous mob of children who are chasing him. Good God. So, he's chased into his house, and he resumes his status as a hermit.
Until that evening, when he goes down into a suspiciously foggy kitchen.
They've got a smoke machine that they just forgot to turn off. And he finds the ghosts of the winos kicking around his kitchen. And there's
I thought, why are these gross homeless ghosts just hanging out in his fucking kitchen? Like, what's this all about? Do they feel bad?
As she explains, ghosts can go anywhere.
Yep. And then he says, how did you get to be a rubby-dub? And I said, what the fuck is that?
Yep.
Also, tacky question, Michael.
Yeah. How'd you fail in life so severely?
Yeah.
Yep.
You seem like maybe you're the kind of person who would die in a derelict house fire.
Yeah. Hey, ghost.
Here's a question I'm going to use at some point in the future.
How'd shit get so bad in your life that you died in a fire? Yeah.
Jesus.
But the thing is, there's some banter, but the important part here is that for some reason they have a fix for his hair problem, which again will solve itself in time. But it's definitely not the problem that Michael is making it out to be. See, if he had just waited for his hair to grow back like a normal person would, none of what follows would happen.
Yeah, he's being a real diva about the whole situation.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm kind of like, you know what, kid? I don't want to help you anyway. You're lucky that these old dead winos want to help you.
Yeah.
I mean, they caused the problem in the first place, but still, you've been rude.
None of this would have happened if they hadn't been winos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
a rubby dub.
A rubby dub. What is that?
So then he decides he's going to make this concoction for which the old crazy lady ghost gives him the recipe.
She gives it to him orally. He's not allowed to write it down. Here are the instructions. 1 really ripe banana, 5 dead flies, 1 rotten egg, 3 licorice leaves.
Who has this shit just laying? Where do you even buy this stuff?
I know. He has a fistful of kitty litter, 3 Connie crisps, whatever those are.
That sounds very Canadian.
Yep. 3.
And I'm in. It sounds great.
Yeah. 3 Crosby crackers, whatever those are. Yep.
Same.
9 spoons of soil.
I think doesn't Crosby, aren't those water crackers?
Your guess is as good as mine, man.
I mean, water crackers are very British, but also I think that sounds very Canadian.
Yeah. 9 spoonfuls of soil, a glass of Pepper's Fizz. Again, whatever that is.
I think it's what you were just drinking.
Let's go with it.
Chicory toilet wine, same thing.
Yeah. A glass of cheer wine. And then a spoonful of peanut butter to thicken it.
Nobody has all this shit in their house.
No. Of note, Skippy paid for product placement in this movie. But here's the thing. You have to be careful to follow the directions to the letter. If you screw it up or you use too much of one thing, bad things will happen. Also, don't get it on your hands or anything really.
Yeah, he does not heed that advice.
Nope.
Neither does Connie in a very upsetting moment that we will get to.
Yeah. So Michael sets about to make the solution while
by candlelight, no less.
Yes, while Dad and Susie watch, and they're like, "What the fuck is he doing?" And so just as he's got it, and he's got it in a blender, and just as he's about to put it on his head, the two of them again ambush him and dump it down the toilet, thinking that he's going to drink it. And so now
it's basically what she made him for breakfast. So I don't know what the fucking problem is.
Yep. So with the recipe lost now, Michael can't make any more. But the ghosts visit him again, and the dude wino steals the recipe from the chick wino, who is sometimes nice and sometimes mean, and he gives it to Michael. So now he gets to baking another batch, and this time nobody stops him. And he happily slops it on his head.
And he says, "I'm a better painter than Dad." And I thought, well, maybe.
I mean, we've seen these paintings. But here's the thing: is the solution, the peanut butter solution, you might say.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep, it's too thin. So he uses more peanut butter. Rookie move. And he says, yeah, I've got to use more peanut butter. It's the only solution. Yeah. So now with the stuff thicker, it sticks to his head.
And meanwhile, the rabbit is still trying to buy this weird painting.
Yeah. In the morning, there's stubble on his head, as happens with everyone who shaves their head, mind you. And everybody acts like it's a fucking miracle. However, it is a miracle because every time they cut away and then cut back to Michael, there's more hair on his head.
And again, I say, this is a health problem. Take him to a doctor. And not that other guy. He doesn't know what he's doing.
I would like to see...
Take him to a real doctor.
I would like to see Dr. Epstein's medical license.
Yeah, well, you can't because he's a Jewish stereotype. And not a doctor, clearly.
Yep. In the bathroom, Michael shows Connie the solution.
I don't like this.
And Connie immediately plots to grow pubes with the stuff, which again will happen naturally with time.
Yeah, I don't care for this part at all. It's very upsetting.
I don't, because it doesn't go anywhere. There's a scene later on that I'm like, oh, is that?
That makes it even fucking weirder.
Yeah, but also fuck it, we'll get there. I'm gonna leave.
So let's revisit what is a horror movie, because we should come back to this, because so far we've got frightening wino ghosts. We have a possibly dead mother. You have a disheveled father. You have bullies at school. It's they're all going to laugh at you thing going on here. And now you have puberty. Like, these are all terrifying things that in the abstract for children are really frightening. But as an adult, through this weird fucking lens, it's just like, who wrote this movie? Yeah. Why is this so weird?
Yeah, there's actually, I believe there's actually like 3 or 4 writer credits to this movie, which again,
I can tell,
makes a lot of sense when you put.
And that doesn't include like the other people who did like Punch Up, if there was any.
Yeah.
Because if someone did Punch Up, all it did was make the movie weirder.
Yep. So Michael is now like ecstatic. This isn't like the wig situation.
Because by the time he gets to school, he's got some real Sean Cassidy hair.
Yeah, but first, he's going to call his mother. And through this, we learn what the country code for Australia is, which, if the Simpsons have taught us anything, and they haven't, a phone call to Australia is expensive and will result in a booty.
$500 dues. Yeah. That's the third Simpsons reference. But that, again, it's more like no, look, everybody, she's not dead.
Yeah.
Like, they all feel really like fucking shoehorned.
It really is just like stuffed into the cracks.
And every time it's just like, it all feels like either reshoots or ADR, because it's like these weird moments that are kind of like, sort of like outside of the plot, but shoved in. Like, he climbs into bed with his father at one point and he's really upset. And it's just like, what is this fucking scene? It would make sense if he was upset because the mother was dead. It doesn't make sense that he's so goddamn traumatized that his hair fell out.
Yeah.
Like, I get that, like, kids get scared of shit, but, like, I don't know. I mean, you know.
Yep.
What's the scary thing here?
I know.
What is the death and loss thing?
Yeah.
Is it hair?
I mean,
is this an allegory? What's happening?
Yeah. So at school, Michael now has a mane of luxurious hair.
Yeah, I told you, real Sean Cassidy, real kind of what's that one where he's got the silk jacket? The Do Run Run, that album. Run. Yeah. Yeah, it's got that real kind of feathered, beautiful, very beautiful.
Yeah, it's a wonderful wig. I credit.
I've decided I want to have another podcast, because every time I watch television, I will turn to whoever is watching television with me. And that's very few people who I watch television with. And I say, you think that's a wig? And every single time Michael goes, yes, it's a wig. And I think, I want to have a podcast that's just called, Is It a Wig? And I'll just have people on and we'll just talk about movies with wigs.
You know what? We're going to do Samurai Cop, because the answer to that question is, yeah, that's a wig.
Well, see, that's the thing, is every time I'm like, well, see, I'm right, though. So let's talk about, is it a wig?
Is it a wig?
In this movie, there is no shortage of wigs.
Oh, there's a variety of them, as a matter of fact.
You've got Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker wig. You've got Sean Cassidy Do Run Run wig. You've got, it just goes on and on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So at home, the thing with the school scene is basically to establish that the hair is growing before his very eyes, and it's a distraction.
And how does he prove it? Because the girls are like, that's not your hair. And I'm like, why the fuck are all these kids so concerned about whether it's his real hair or not? Get a life,
get a
ladies.
Yeah.
And then he's like, look, he has dandruff. Like, this kid can't catch a fucking break.
Yep. So at home that night, Michael comes in looking like Cousin It. And Dad is, again, this is what I talked about earlier. Dad is impressed instead of being absolutely horrified.
I mean, this is concerning because he went to school that morning and he did not have Sean Cassidy hair, nor did he look like Cousin It.
No.
Now he's back. It's time for dinner. What did Dad make? Toronto noodle soup. What the fuck is that?
What is that?
Did I look it up? Yeah. Is there a recipe? No. There's not even a mention of it.
Nope.
It's just like, what are the best noodle soup places in Toronto? Now, is that good information? Sure. Is it what I needed in the moment? No.
Nope. You know what? When he puts the pod down, like having watched this a couple of times, I'm like, I bet you it's just like egg noodles and water and like a bouillon cube. Like that's probably it. Because that
I don't know. That sounds like American noodles.
That strikes me as the only thing that this man is capable of making.
Yeah. Because he is a complete waste of space.
Yeah,
he's a bad father. He's a mediocre painter at best.
Yeah.
There's a medical crisis unfolding in front of him, and he thinks it's a great thing.
A legit problem, and nobody reacts to this the way that you expect them to.
No, but he does apologize to Connie, and I thought, well, that's the first good thing you did.
Yeah, because Connie's just trying to help out, man. And Connie's doing a lot more for this family than Dad or Susie.
Yeah, because the dad's just like, your hair is young and frisky. It's like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yep.
What is wrong with you? You're a bad father.
Yep. So the hair is now such a problem at school that Connie has to cut it as it grows.
Now, but let me be honest with you. Fucking every kid in that classroom could use a haircut.
Yeah.
I mean, they all looked like me when I was 8, just like fucking cowlicks out, left and right.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone looks terrible.
I'm telling you.
This is when the younger people are like, the 80s, everything was so cool and hip and colorful. No, it wasn't. Everything was fucking gross and earth tones. Everyone had bad hair. It looks like they cut it themselves. That's what the 80s looked like.
I had the worst fucking hair that you can imagine. Just the fucking worst. All the way through the 80s. And it didn't really get much better after that. And then I lost
You know what it is? You know what your hair looked like in the 80s? It looked like, you remember the beginning of Sleepaway Camp when the kids driving the boat? That's what your hair looked like in the 80s.
Yeah.
You looked like that kid in the
80s. Yep.
Why? Somebody help the people.
Somebody help the people. Michael cops to using the solution, but
understandably, they also keep getting yelled at by the teacher. It's like, okay, so the dad's not concerned because she's a bad parent, obviously. Yep. The mom's not dead, so she's not really worried about it. It's like Connie's the only one who seems to be taking this seriously because even the teachers are not. They're like, you are being disruptive. And it's like, what is wrong with all of you people?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Why are you gaslighting him?
He pleads with the teacher to be educated. He wants to be educated, not just Harry, he says. But this movie has a really weird relationship with school. And I think that it's kind of consistent with the 1980s because there was a real sort of anti-establishment vibe to a lot of these children's movies at the time because they were being written by like post-hippie boomers.
So the ones that hadn't like flipped to Republicanism.
Well, even them, but like teachers and faculty were always being portrayed as sort of adversarial. But because this movie is so pleasantly Canadian, it can't help but make them seem a little bit pleasant.
But also like weirdly aloof.
Yeah. With the exception of the senior, I would say like the teachers just seem kind of like rash and like sort of quick to judge, but they're not bad guys.
But I think this is what makes this an interesting movie because to a child, this shit probably makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Like where your teachers are an authority figure who you mostly have an adversarial relationship with, like, under most circumstances. Yeah. Like, but to an adult, it's like, this is bonkers. What is this movie? But like to a kid, like the fears seem real and rational. The fact that like your teachers aren't listening to you and are just sort of like either condescending to you or dismissing you. It's like and again, I don't remember what it was like to watch it, but it must have felt more like this all makes sense. But to me, I'm like, none of this makes sense. And it's really weird that a kid would think that it does.
Yeah. It feels like really kind of consistent with the way that like when Nickelodeon was really new as like a children's property,
which was also extremely Canadian.
It was very most of
was
their
from like
programming,
Ohio or whatever.
Yeah, like most of their programming was Canadian.
Much like today, most things were shot in Canada.
It's cheap, man. So yeah.
Okay, the teachers say they will resign if he goes back to the classroom.
Right. What the fuck is wrong with you people? So that night, Connie tosses and turns because his mutant pubes are growing out of control and are making his legs itchy. And then he yells at them to stop, and they do.
It's like that movie. What's the one where they're on the pyramid in Mexico? The ruins.
The ruins, yeah.
With the vines that are trying to kill them. It's that.
Yeah.
Except it's pubes and a Canadian 10-year-old or whatever. It's very. Yeah. I don't like any.
So
of it.
Is this? Well, this was my question. Is this the trick to making the hair stop growing? Because
and how come he doesn't say that to the other?
He does not mention it. It never comes back into play.
I'll tell you why. Because they passed the script off to someone else who was like, I don't like that. It's like when you watch cooking shows and like Top Chef, and they'll do a thing where like they're working as a team, but they can't see what the other people are doing. So then they just kind of have to pass off the recipe to someone else. And they're like, I guess I got to figure it out based on what's in front of me.
Master Chef tag team.
And so they're just like, yeah, you know what? I don't like that part. I'm going to start my own thing. I'm an arrogant asshole. I'm going to start my own thing.
Yeah. Back at his own house, Michael has to keep his hair lifted with this elaborate contraption for some reason. And he has...
It is a very strange... It's like the sash from the curtains or something like that.
Yeah.
And he ties it in it.
Like in a bow at the end. And it's like this like onion of hair that just like rests on top of his head.
I think they were just like, that's a great visual. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Because he just sort of sits up and falls asleep. He's like he's a horse. He just falls asleep. I don't think that's true. I think horses actually do lay down. I don't think anything stands up to sleep. That seems like a bad idea.
But he has nightmares about the spooky house again. And
about the dog.
Yes. And these ones are terrifying. It's all like heavily polarized footage of the house that runs in like slow-mo while dogs just bark on the soundtrack.
Yeah. It feels positively German.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. And he has nightmares about the Signor and his dog and of having his hair attacked by dogs. It's so Freudian.
Yeah. And then he wakes up and he's like under a house. Or is that later?
No, that happens next. So yeah, the next morning with his hair trailing on the ground, Michael's been kicked out of school, we find out, and he intends to go anyways, which, what the fuck school? It's his hair.
I mean, I think this really resonates with us today, where they're just like, you can't talk about black people or queers, and if you do, we're kicking you out of school. And they're like, we just want to learn what is wrong with you. And I say, I ask the same question.
Yeah. So on the way to school, for some reason, the wind is so strong that he's getting like blown all over the place, and his hair's getting blown all over the place. And he finds shelter next to a neighbor's house and falls asleep.
Yeah. Under the house.
So unfortunately, this leaves him vulnerable to being kidnapped by an unseen French person, which if I were a young child watching this, that might actually be a little frightening.
Yes, because for context, everybody, the biggest fear a child had in the 80s was being kidnapped.
Stranger danger.
Now, I often say kidnapping was really hot in the 80s. Kidnapping was having its fucking best life in the 80s. I don't know if it was actually more children were being kidnapped. I think it's really more of like people heard about it a lot more.
Oh, sure.
It's rage.
It's like today, you know.
But in the 80s, kidnapping was real hot, and there were fucking TV movies about it. It was like happened on TV shows. Remember when Tootie runs away and goes to New York, and they try to kidnap her and like sex traffic her?
Yep.
Like that was all the special episodes were like, you are going to be kidnapped, raped, and sold into slavery.
Yeah, what was that one? I think I know my first name is Steven.
I know my first name is Steven. The movie about Steven Stainer, who had what is probably the saddest life ever.
The worst.
Who was kidnapped, then heroically saves another boy from these pedophiles, only to die like 4 years later in a motorcycle accident, and his brother was a serial killer.
The worst fucking life possible.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that every now and then.
Yeah,
when
that's the 80s. In a nutshell, that is the 80s.
Yep. So
and that's what happens to Michael.
Yep. So now back home, Dad is tormented with grief as like news headlines spin in to
you forgot to mention that the Signor is wearing a coat made entirely of hair.
Oh yeah. When he comes back around, because they haven't everybody knows,
have they not shown him yet?
They've not shown him yet, but like everybody knows who kidnaps him. But yeah, like later on, he's gonna show up with an entire coat, like a big fucking coat made of hair. But back home, Dad is tormented with grief as news headlines spin into frame announcing Michael's disappearance. And he's like cartoonishly trashing his studio. And then like more news headlines spin in, like announcing more child disappearances. And he like furthermore like trashes his studio. And then later we find out the kidnapper is the Senior, who has Michael in this weird coffin thing.
Yeah, and 20 kids are missing from school.
Yes,
in the span of, I don't really know how, like, what the timeline is.
It's almost like it happens overnight.
But it's like all of a sudden, why are so many kids missing? Why has nobody done this?
Including
was no one doing anything?
Including Connie's sister.
Yeah, and everyone's real fucking like blasé about everything.
Super nonchalant about all these missing.
Like children. Connie's just like, well, they took Mei Ling, my sister, but hey, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We should get the adults. And Susie says, well, Dad's no use. Yeah, no shit, Susie. Shit. Your dad is a fucking train wreck. Nothing about that man says he's going to be good in a crisis.
Yeah. Yep. So the two of them are like, well, we got to do something about this. And then later, but they immediately abandon the plan to do something about it. And they go to an art supply store to buy a gift for her dad in order to cheer him up. And this is where the clerk gives them a new, very expensive brush with weird bristles.
Look, I'm not a painter. I don't know much about creating art. Clearly, I have a podcast. It seems like the least effective brush you could possibly buy.
Oh yeah, it's all floppy.
I mean, it is clearly made from human hair.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, I think he says it, or rather, they recognize it as Michael's.
If someone was like, "Hey, you can buy this paintbrush that's made from human hair. You can use it to make paintings," I would say, "Get away from me right now."
Yeah.
I don't like you being near me. You frighten me.
Yeah, they question the guy at the counter about the brush. Like they buy it, and then they find out that like they're sold to the art supply store by a guy who refuses to identify himself.
But he's wearing a giant coat made of human hair.
Giant coat made of human hair.
Kind of recognizable.
Yep. But then they kind of figure it out that it's the Signor. And
yeah, because Susie is touching the hairbrush and she goes, "I know this hair."
Yeah.
And I said, "What? What do you mean you know this hair, you goddamn weirdo?"
She's been cutting it for like, I don't know, weeks.
Either 2 weeks or 6 years. It does. Who knows? Who knows how long this movie takes to unfold?
Yep. So together, Connie and Susie stake out the art supply store until the Signor arrives to drop off more brushes. And then the Signor makes a weak attempt to kidnap Susie. But while that's happening, Connie sneaks into the back.
I will say they're standing outside the art supply store. My first thought, because he has a funnel and a big bag of sugar. And my first thought was, they're gonna put sugar in his gas tank. Bingo, bango, sugar in the gas tank. Your ex-husband strikes again. That's number 4, everybody.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, this is their plan. I mean, it's not a bad plan.
No, they're gonna leave like a trail of breadcrumbs.
But he says, so the Signor kind of sidles up to her in this real fucking creepy moment. And he's like, "Hello, little girl. Do you want to come for a ride?"
Wearing a suit made of human hair.
Now, everything about that says no, I don't. But it is also the laziest kidnapping technique.
It is. Because also she's like, "Nah, I'm good." And he's like, I tried.
You didn't really, though. I mean...
No.
Somehow you've been successful enough to kidnap, like, I guess 20 plus children have fallen for this. So some of them are, I don't know.
Oh no, we're going to find out. We're going to find out how he gets them. And that part also kind of.
Oh yeah, no, that's some real creepy shit.
Yeah. So now the truck takes off and Connie is hidden in the back, and what he's doing is he's
This is when we get the first hot Celine Dion song.
Yeah. So he's like pouring sugar out the back to like leave a trail while the Celine Dion song plays. And it's
a real Scooby-Doo moment.
It's got lyrics like binga banga dinga danga, your brain goes clang clang, now you're off to Hong Kong and shit.
The whole thing feels like this is like real made for TV.
like I'm trying, I don't want to rag on it because she was like a teenager when she wrote the song. But
and then in the meantime, Susie's following behind on her bike, and then there's like a bunch of hobos catcalling her, and it's like why is she right? First of all, wouldn't he see her in the rearview mirror? But also, why are these old men yelling at a 10-year-old girl on a bike?
That's right, because there are like all these people who are just sort of like menacingly hanging around and like, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. They're on the bad side of town. If there is such a thing in Montreal.
I don't know. I think in Canada that's called Edmonton.
Yeah, in your face, Edmonton.
Yeah, suck it, Edmonton.
Yep.
The rest of Canada is better than you.
So
you're the America of Canada.
So she loses the trail, there's like a street cleaner or something that like washes it away, and so she's like basically forced to kind of give up on it. But Connie,
that was the scene where the closed caption refers to them as winos, and I thought, winos, good work, Severin.
Yeah. So so now Connie is captured, and the Signor appears to. This is again like he's wearing the suit or the coat.
This is when he drags him into the Signor's lair.
Yeah.
And it looks like he lives on the set of the Take On Me video.
Yeah. So what we find is that the Signor's workshop is full of captive child slaves who are making brushes out of Michael's hair.
Now, this is a direct Temple of Doom thing, right?
It has to be.
From here on out, this is Temple of Doom.
That was the year before.
Right down to the Asian kid.
Yes. That was the year before this. That was 84. Yeah. So, because there's like that's right, and there's child slaves in like cages and shit like in this movie.
This is like it's just a sweatshop, which again, kind of an 80s fear.
Yep. So
nobody cared when it actually happened, but when it happened in movies, it was terrible.
No, when it looks as though actually like the entire city population of children is here.
Yeah, but they're also even they're kind of like, it sucks, but what are you gonna do about it? I guess we live here now.
So. The Signor apparently is feeding Michael a yogurt-only diet.
I did not care for this at all.
This
moment was really upsetting
because he feeds it to him.
Yeah, and it's like it's like plain yogurt, and he's like laying in this weird iron lung looking thing.
Yeah, like Michael is basically.
It is like a deeply disturbing visual.
Forever in state, just lying there in this like coffin thing as his hair grows down a funnel behind him, and the Signor spoon feeds him plain yogurt.
Did you see the black phone?
Yeah.
So the black phone where there's a heavy implication of sexual abuse, but they never actually say it or anything. That's what this kind of gives, is like this weird, bizarrely intimate, deeply disturbing sexual implications. I was very upset about this whole
I think that it's supposed to be like kind of like a fairy tale quality to it, but because it has none of the fairy tale trappings and it's all just very modern and
it's
weird,
just terrifying.
And in this like child slave sweatshop, it's just like the implication is so much more dire.
But you know what the best part was? Even the dog has a hair coat.
Yep. I gotta tell you, I like the dog.
Yeah, the dog's pretty great.
Yep.
So this is when we find out the darkest fucking part of this movie.
So Connie gets captured and he starts to talk to all the other kids and he's like, "How'd you get him?" And the kids are like, the Signor is basically roofing the children.
Yeah, allow me. Through lies, through hypnosis, through ice cream that puts you to sleep. Oh man, I didn't like that at all.
No, when I heard that, I was like, because I again watched it a couple of times in reasonable close proximity. The second time I was paying attention, and that line really stuck out to me. It also made me think of bags of powder, which make you sleepless.
You're sleepless. Pal Friendly comes by. And meanwhile, all the kids are wearing what I will describe as Heaven's Gate robes.
Yeah, they're all like in a uniform.
These sort of like weird
beige,
robes.
Yeah. Yep. Not good. It's not good.
No. This is whoever wrote the last part of this movie. I don't know if they ever worked again, but Jesus Christ.
You'll find out that that the end of their career coincides with the beginning of a stint in prison.
Yeah. God damn.
Yeah, so at the same time as all this darkness is dawning upon us, we learn that the Signor is painting these crazy magical paintings that you can actually
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
This comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there's magic involved.
Yep, and you can walk into these paintings,
mm-hmm.
and it's only possible with Michael's magical hair paintbrushes.
And he does it in this very whimsical.
Oh yeah. Like we're gonna get there and actually see him do it in a strange turn of character. But first, we gotta sort of connect a few dots here because we're way off track now.
Yeah, the murder mystery is afoot.
Yeah, so back home, we find out that the doctor who's just hanging out with Michael's dad, his brother is also the rabbit.
And this is when my note says, who the hell is the rabbit?
Yeah.
Because I must have missed earlier on that is the guy's name in the painting. Why is he the rabbit?
I don't know.
And the Signor. Also, why do all three of them have different accents?
Right. Yeah. I assume just based on his behavior, the doctor got hit on the head with something, and that's just what he does. We also find out that they also have another brother, a dude named Sergio, who now has no name and only goes by the name the Signor. So now they can use him to track down the Signor. And so back at the Signor's child slave.
But also, like, how is the Signor his brother?
Because
he's clearly a con man. It is canonically established that he is a con man who has changed his identity like 7 times.
Bounced around
presumably
locations.
He's moving around a lot. This is all very convenient.
As to evade the law.
I'm guessing when Michael Rubo conceived of this, he didn't really have an ending.
No. Like, I get the feeling that there was a certain point where they were like, okay, write all this shit down. And then he wrote it down and they're like, okay, let's get into production. And then they looked at the script and went, dude, there's no ending here.
Yeah, someone was just like, guys, this is like a 98 minutes and we're nowhere near wrapping this shit up.
Yeah.
They were like, I don't know. How about these 2 convenient facts that solve the whole fucking movie?
Yep. So back at the Signor's child slave camp, the children
all the Heaven's Gate members are asleep in their hammocks. Like it's a goddamn submarine.
God, I tried to make another Simpsons reference with the Hank Scorpio episode and I just couldn't. But I will say this, looks pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
So Connie wakes up and he plots to go see Michael, but he finds out that the Signor has this fucked up security system of all these invisible strings, which are tied to this fucking ring that he wears that looks like something out of Dungeons and Dragons, and it's tied to his hand. So,
and then the other kid is like, here, just take my magic string knocker or whatever the fuck he calls it.
It's basically
it's just like a piece of wood.
It's a stick with like a rag attached to it so that you hold it out in front of you, and when you come across one of these invisible strings, it you can see it move and drag the thing over the string. So that's what it is. That's ingenious.
Yeah, I mean, this is a children's movie, but the implications of all of this are chilling.
Yeah. Yes. But why it has not occurred to this child to use this delightful device beforehand, unless he uses it to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Like, I don't.
Yeah, what do you do in that case?
Yeah. But Connie uses the device to to detect the strings. He gets all the way to Michael. But Connie now finds that Michael is fully in the throes of Stockholm Syndrome. And also, what you were going to say?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
What I was going to say. I'm bewildered by the end of this movie.
Right. So the Signor wakes up and he catches Connie and then a chase.
Who then throws giant darts at him for some reason?
Oh, but did you notice why the dartboard is there? Because there's a board and the Signor throws them at a picture of a person. That person is the principal from the school. And it's like a head to toe printout of her, like full 1-to-1 size.
That the Signor had to have this giant life-size British lady thing printed out.
Yeah.
He then had to either purchase or make giant darts.
Yep.
Now, why wouldn't you just use regular sized darts?
Yeah. Well,
But
because
the giant darts also have the magic hair on them.
Yeah, it's not cartoony or whimsical enough.
So they make magical paintbrushes and giant hair darts.
Yeah, for fun.
This is how Connie gets himself out of it. He
Yes.
tells him he wants him to be his dad.
Yes. So yeah, because Connie is now kept hung in a net. And he weaves this story about his dad being dead in a plane crash, and he wants the Signor to be his
It's about
father.
fucking time someone's parents died.
I know. No, but that turns out to also be a lie.
Yep.
So yeah, so he begs him to be his dad, which makes the Signor very happy.
And the Signor says, I've never had children, only a dog. And I wrote, I think that's probably for the best. This guy is dangerous.
No, also, he clearly has children. He's got about 30 of them right now.
Yeah. That he stole with sleepy ice cream.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but this causes.
I mean, how you can't have the mother be dead, but you can have the Signor be a child drugging rapist.
Yep. But this causes his entire affect to change. And so now Connie talks him into using the brushes to paint a real location on one of the canvases.
He is a whimsical kidnapper now.
Yep, with one of Michael's brushes.
And in an adorable old man type performance.
Yep. Oh yeah, right. Because there's like a dance involved, and he's all like happy,
and they're all laughing and living it up. And it's like, this is the problem with kids. They're fucking stupid.
Yep.
10 minutes ago, this guy drugged and kidnapped you and forced you to make horrible hair paintbrushes.
Yeah.
Now you think he's the coolest thing ever.
Yep, because he does a funny little dance.
Yeah. Now, is it a great moment? It's a little Marcel for my taste, but I guess.
Yeah.
It wouldn't win me over if he was my kidnapper.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to be full, like really, it would be Stockholm syndrome. Like you are fully convinced that this is like your fault or something and that you've got to protect him. But what he does is he ends up painting the spooky old house, and then Connie has him like go into it.
And he explains, this is where we kind of learn about the fright.
Yeah. So also, this is a big like special effects scene too.
Oh yeah, you can tell like 30% of their budget went to this moment.
Yep. Yeah.
But this is where we learn about the fright. So how does Connie know that it's called the fright?
I believe either Michael's dad or the doctor.
And what is the fright? Because I thought it was just these two old dead drunks.
No, apparently at this point, this is like a pathological thing that you can get when you're scared. But now we learn.
But all it does is make your hair grow?
But it's like a curse. Because what ends up happening is the Signor goes into it and they're like, hey, climb up in there and like go in the house. And he goes in the house and he has the same exact experience that Michael has, where he gets scared and he loses all of his hair. But now the Signor has the fright, meaning Michael has like passed the curse on or something like that. We're just free associating at this point.
This is basically It Follows, but without the second.
Yeah.
Or maybe just like It Follows. I don't know.
So Michael is now like free of this curse. They get up. The Signor comes in and he gets up, and now he has no hair. He kind of looks like Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. And they do the whole like Scooby-Doo chase scene where they're running down hallways and
the only thing it's missing is like a fucking Strawberry Alarm Clock soundtrack or something. I don't.
Yeah.
It is a real loopy moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of this, like sort of them trying to escape, and they end up getting cornered by the Signor, who's about to pounce when in runs Michael's dad and the rabbit, and
because Susie eventually picks up the trail of the sugar.
That's right. Yep.
Which thank fucking God, because otherwise these kids would be murdered.
Because
she's the only one doing anything.
This movie would just keep fucking going on and on and on. But anyways, Dad
shows him down,
up.
And the father says, "Don't get his pants dirty. That's his only pair." Or no, the rabbit says that.
Yes.
And I thought that is a really weird thing to say. Also, how do you know that?
Yeah, I don't know. By this point,
I don't know how many pairs of pants you own. Why does he know that?
At this point, I'm just like, can we just get on with this?
Seriously, wrap this shit up, guys.
Yeah. So yes, but they do, and then the Signor gets arrested and reunited back at home. Michael's mom comes home, and
thank God. Look, everybody, she's definitely not dead.
Not dead. Definitely alive. She comes home. Family is fully reunited. Roll the fucking credits.
Well, you forgot the part where we get the winos again.
That's
and
right.
He goes back into
the painting, and
the woman, he's like, "Why was I so afraid of you?" And she's like, "What are you talking about? I'm a kooky old crazy lady ghost." And then he's like, "No, you're not. You're just a..." I'm like, "Well, she did cause you to lose all your hair, and she's kind of been wicked mean to you all along."
It's almost as though they're like trying to sort of sell us on this idea that he has learned some lesson, but what that lesson is never outlined.
Maybe old dead winos aren't as scary as you thought they were. They're just they're the old dead winos you met along the way. That's life right there. And then the guy says something, the homeless guy says something, but the lines are ADR'd and his mouth doesn't even move at all.
Yeah.
And we never learn what happened to the old gross kidnapper. That's just the end of the movie.
Just the end of the movie.
And I thought, wow.
Yep.
That was a movie for kids.
Yeah. Celine Dion plays us off.
Yeah, she does.
Fucking Christ.
So is it a horror movie? I don't know, but I don't know what else it is either.
I think that it is definitely unsettling in enough places, in enough ways to definitely, like, I understand why Severin picked up on it, because it's definitely got that, like, it's uncanny, it's weird to a fault,
and let's be honest, that license can't be that expensive.
Probably not. It's probably like the stuff Vinegar Syndrome's picking up. But yeah, good God, I'm glad we're past this one, because I gotta tell you, I'm not a fan. I'm glad I saw it, and also, I mean, as far as like Blu-rays go, you could do a lot worse. Like Severin's release of it is really quite good.
Will I watch it again? Probably.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that, like, if I'm gonna have somebody's gonna be like, "What's a really fucked up movie that's not like a fucking blood and guts horror movie?" I'd probably show them that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's that or Magnolia. Your options.
Yep. So, what's next?
Oh man, what is next? Is we're going to be celebrating it's National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yep.
I believe that is the technical term. I think it also might be a somewhat controversial name, but I am not going to get involved in that fracas. Instead, what I will do is I will celebrate my favorite Mexican horror film, Don't Panic.
Yeah. Oh man, we are going to put Ruben Galindo Jr. on a pedestal and really let you know just how wonderful this movie is.
It makes me so happy.
Yep, this is one that we've been looking forward to for a while, and man, am I glad we found a reason to get it on the schedule. So, yep, stick with us. We'll see you next time with Don't Panic.
Ew.